Hey girls, it's Mercy here, and today I'm going to be telling you about how Prep Dish changed our family's dinner table. Every week, my mom gets an email with the meal plans, grocery lists, and preparation instructions for the week. She lets us pick our favorites from their paleo, gluten-free, and super fast meal options. I am the pickiest eater in this family, and girlfriends, this food is delicious. So do yourself a favor, stop worrying about what's for dinner, and go to prepdish.com/heygirl for your free 2-week trial. That's right, free 2-week trial. And that's prepdish.com/heygirl.
Hey girls, and welcome to another episode of the Hey Girl podcast. We're your hosts, Bethany Needham
and Laurie Casagrande.
And each week, we get to share with you stories from women of all ages and stages of life who are following Jesus right where they're at.
Our prayer is that each story encourages you to run your race in your place.
In this week's episode, we have my friend, Erica Renaud. Erica is another friend that I got to meet through our Simply Beautiful conference as she came and helped serve. I think she's done workshops and the girl talk in the middle of the day. She's filled in a lot of different slots. She is incredibly talented. She's such a sweet friend, and I've just really enjoyed getting to know her over the last few years. So today's episode, we're talking all over the map, from her childhood, from finding out that she was expecting her senior year of high school, into just how God got a hold of her life and the work that he's done since then. I have loved her story. It was such a joy to sit down and get a chance to hear from her, and I know that this episode is going to be an incredible blessing and encouragement to you. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my friend Erica Renaud.
Okay, girls, I am here with my friend Erica and so excited to have you on the podcast. So welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be on the podcast as well.
Yes. So let me think. I'm trying to remember the first time I met you, and I should have thought about this before, but we have a mutual connection, which
Yes.
is my friend Christine, who actually does our show notes for Hey Girl and has become really involved. And her and I founded Simply Beautiful, the girls' conference we talk a lot about together.
Yes.
Anybody that's a friend of Christine is like an instant friend of mine. I just love them.
Which is awesome.
I feel like Simply Beautiful was likely our first connection. Would that be accurate?
I think that is accurate.
Yes. And I have just so appreciated, we do not live near each other, but a couple of things that have always stood out for me with you, first of all, is when I met you and you informed me of how many kids you had. And I'm like, well, now I feel bad because I was pretty sure she was like 16.
That, you and everyone else.
Yes. This is the sad part where they don't get to actually see videos. So they can't see your amazing dreadlocks and the nose ring that I'm just always jealous of, like your cool factor when we're face to face. I've just always loved every interaction we've had. And you reached out, I believe, to my husband and I both, not that long after we first met, and you were interested in doing more public speaking and just really impressed, sounds like a weird word to say, but was really impressed with your humility and teachability and just like, hey, if I want to do this, like, what do I need to do? Just give me a list of things, and just your eagerness to learn. And it's been so fun for me to be able to, like, if a speaking thing comes along and be like, can I introduce you to my friend Erica? And then to have you go and like rock it, I feel like a proud mom.
Well, that is awesome.
So here's the thing. I know a little bit about your story, but I really want our listeners to get a chance to hear more of who you are and where you come from. So why don't you take a few moments and just tell us a little bit of your story?
So I grew up in upstate New York, just south of the Adirondacks. I received Christ in the pages of my Precious Moments Bible. I was going to say my precious, precious Moments Bible. It was very precious. And that was really a big deal because we had gone to Catholic church for years. And then it wasn't until I was in second grade that we went to a Christian Missionary Alliance church. And then the year after that was when I received Christ. And it was, not this big, profound thing, but I do remember praying and reading about him for the first time. And after I did that, I heard a song in my head, which was cool because I was the youngest of 4, and my siblings always talked about, oh, don't sing that, you'll get that song in my head. And I never understood what that meant until, for some reason, after I received Christ, I heard a song in my head. And I went and told my parents, I just, prayed to receive Christ, and now I have a song in my head. Which
That's
is like
so cute. Do you remember the song?
No. And honestly, I don't know that it was like I don't know that it was a song I knew, or if it was just like a song. Like maybe I heard Heaven Rejoicing. I have no idea. But
I love that.
So my childhood was great. Probably the main highlight of my childhood was definitely church. We went to church a lot, and my parents were both involved. But also I did gymnastics 3 days a week for years, probably till I was in 9th or 10th grade. But gymnastics is great. I think anyone who gets gymnastics at all, like you grow up feeling tough. And I did gymnastics with a really fun, awesome group of girls. We were constantly laughing, constantly playing games. I always felt like I could beat any of the other boys in a push-up contest or something.
Nice.
I don't know that I could have, but like that's the way I felt. Because you do like, a couple hundred push-ups throughout the week. So, and playing outside, I just loved playing in my neighborhood, rollerblading, playing in the woods, playing by the stream. So I feel like that was really my childhood in a nutshell. Teen years hit, and that was great, but I would say my eyes were everywhere but on Jesus. I think I was probably fascinated by everything else the high school had to offer but him. So I really struggled with a lot of things in that time. And I also got, and I kind of, as an adult, I see this even in my personality now, but I got really tired of just the day in, day out mundaneness of teen life and teen years, because you have so much going on inside of you, and you're told to go to school, go to the same classes every day, the same people. And it got really tiring, and I felt like there was very little purpose or point in it. And I just had such like longing and desire for way more than that. So that a lot of that longing came out in other things, drinking, partying, all that, boys. So yeah, I really struggled to follow Christ as a teen. I had kind of concluded, I guess I don't have what it takes to be a Christian. Because everything that one is supposed to do to be a good Christian, I was not able to do. So I would go to a retreat or a weekend conference, and I would come home and really just actively reject those things that had been pulling me away from Christ. But then like time would pass, and I would just fall right back into the same people, the same activities. And it felt like I went back and forth, following Christ and then totally not. And that was pretty much my entire high school life until, like I said, it was 12th grade that I was like, I don't have what it takes to be a Christian. I guess I'm not cut out for this. I remember telling good friends of mine one night, I said, I think I'm going to have to just hit rock bottom until I will be able to come up for good. And I was really, really far from rock bottom, but in my teenage mind, that's what I thought, I guess I'm going to have to hit rock bottom. I've since learned that that's kind of the point of Christianity, is that we don't have what it takes. We need Christ. So, all those years of like, I can't do it. I think when I was saying and realizing I can't do this, Christ was like, yep, that's the right answer. I actually recently looked back at my journals, and they're full of Jesus changed me. Jesus, I remembered the verse where I'm the clay and he's the potter. And my journal is just full of, over and over again, I need you to change me. I can't do this. I recognize that you're the one that can make my heart shift and make my desires change, and I need you to change me. he did. And he answered my prayers in the strangest way. Towards the end of my senior year, I became pregnant with a little girl. And it was through that pregnancy that he completely turned my life around. Probably over the first 3 months of my pregnancy was when the biggest shift happened. You know, everyone else was preparing to go to college. I was buying maternity clothes. Mm-hmm. Everyone else was buying dorm room stuff or getting their calculus books. I was getting, you know, what to expect when you're expecting.
Yes.
Woo. It was a quick change, and all of a sudden my friends seemed very immature. I was no longer willing to put things in my body or hang around people once I realized that I was responsible for another person's life. You know, it's one thing to kind of mess with my own life. It's another thing to mess with someone else's life. And that was a big deal.
I think this is one of those things that I remember connecting with you so much, because even though totally different scenarios per se, but that, and I've shared with you before, but that's kind of part of my own story. And I've said it all the time when I share my story. I don't want to say that babies fix things, because that's not generally people's testimony. Isn't like, then I had a baby and then, whoa, like sometimes it can go like, this was devastating and like really hard. But similarly, like, and this was definitely one of those Me Too that after meeting you and bonding over, I was 19 when I found out, and everything you just described, I was, you talk about flashbacks, but my friends are going off to college and I'm like, oh my word, I'm nursing a baby in the middle of the night. Like, what is happening? It's such a strange reality that it's hard to just, I mean, if you've not been there, but I think most women who've gone through their early 20s know, like, if you explain. So imagine when you were 19 and 20, like, now add a baby and picture what life could be like. It's very different.
Right.
But it's amazing when God uses that, though, because it was, for me, it was the same. Josiah, I say to this day, was God's. For me, I was married very young. So we were married at the time, but I think God answered my prayer to save my marriage by sending my son. Again,
that's a big,
not saying babies save marriages, but in our case, it was definitely what God used.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's, I still look back on it like just feeling like, wow.
Yeah. Because how old is your daughter now?
So she just turned 13.
Yeah.
Which I'm so proud of, because you probably heard this too, but everybody always says, enjoy them while they're young. And then they make a snarky comment about teenagers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I totally get and appreciate that you're trying to give me perspective. However, I want to look forward to the teen years. I don't want to feel like everything is doomed as soon as I become a teenager. So she's 13, and I'm sure there's a lot of life ahead for her and for all of us as a family, because she's just my first teen. But yeah, she's 13, and I'm so proud of her, and I'm so excited to say, I love my teenager.
Okay, so I'll tell you this. One, Jen Hatmaker is one of those voices that's good to follow as far as a mom that speaks towards loving having teenagers. Because I'm with you. I hear more and more people that are, because my youngest is like 12 and a half right now. So I have one that's 14, but my youngest, and people are always like, oh, just wait, it's coming. And every day I'm like, I stinking love her. Like I'm probably unhealthily obsessed with my daughter. I think that she's so fun. And the older she gets, the more fun she's getting.
Right.
I don't know. So I'm with you, girl. I think we just embrace it. I think
so.
I think there's good and bad with every season, and same with the teen years. So, yeah.
The reality is every season has its own struggles.
Yes.
That's just life. So the struggles of a teen are maybe more heartfelt, maybe more dramatic. But there's also, every season has different joys. So like, I'm looking forward to the joys. All right. So anyway, I get pregnant. God used that in a big way to really turn my heart wholeheartedly towards him. So when I was about 7 months pregnant, he brought into my life my current husband, Erica Renaud, who's a worship leader. And we met at church. Well, we met before I was pregnant, but when I was 7 months pregnant, we actually started dating. And it was one of those, he was the worship leader and I was just a teen. But as soon as I graduated, he was interested in me. Except that I graduated pregnant, which is funny, and he was still interested in me.
It doesn't make him sound creepy at all.
So he's amazing. He's super grounded, super theological. He was one of 9 children.
Wow.
He always spoke highly of his father, his father actually passed away when he was a teenager. But dating him, I was like, this guy would be such an excellent husband and father. He loves family. He had tons of younger siblings, and he spoke so highly of his dad. So not only did God use the pregnancy to turn me around, but then he used my husband, Jesse, to just give me basic wisdom and encouragement, really guide me in the right direction in our time together. So we got engaged when my daughter was about 9 months pregnant. And that
when your daughter was 9 months old, 9 months pregnant.
Yes, you're right. When my daughter was 9 months old.
Yeah, I'm just going to throw your daughter a bone there. Protect her reputation.
Oh, that's good. Thank you for, yes. So we got engaged, and I was still only 19, I guess. And so my parents were not fully on board, though they really liked Jesse. They were sort of like, let's hold on a sec. Let's take a step back. And so there's a lot of conversations that took place in that time. My parents were concerned about a lot of things. And I think just me being the baby, so to speak, like I said, the youngest of 4, and just having a baby and now ready to move out and get married, I think just felt like a lot. So the memory that I have was sort of the turning point of this time where my parents were having a hard time getting on board. Was my mom and I had a conversation, and she was just sort of telling me the realities of life. You're not going to college because you have a baby. And I don't know if Jesse's going to college because he's a worship leader, and looks like he's going to work in ministry. And there's just a lot of this confusion. And then I realized that she was getting at finances. And I was sort of like, oh, is that what all this is about? And I distinctly remember I said, I would rather be dirt poor and live with Jesse than live a day away from him. Live the rest of my life without him. And
sounds like a Hallmark movie.
It does. Even as I look back, it plays like a scene of a movie. It's very bizarre. And my mom, literally with tears in her eyes, immediately said, well, then you're going to have to write that down and carry it in your pocket and remember that every day. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And she was just doing the mother thing by trying to set my expectations. You know what I mean? So we got married. It was a beautiful wedding. It was awesome. We moved to South Jersey, and he continued being a worship leader. I sort of went to college here and there. And yeah, we were really poor, and it was really a lot. But it was awesome, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. We lived down there for 7 years, and we learned a ton in that time. I think God taught us a lot through... he teaches us a lot through struggling. That's sort of not the way we want things to be, but that's kind of the way things are, is a lot of times we learn the most through the struggles that we go through. And so our time in New Jersey, one of the main things we learned there was that God is the foundation for our family, not finances. In fact, we were probably 4 years married, and we had sat down, we had this long conversation, and we're just number crunching and trying to figure out how to keep going to school. But Jesse was also working 2 jobs, and I had kind of on and off worked a job. And at the end of our conversation, he said, okay, I think in another 2 years, we'll be able to see some sort of a change in what our life looks like. And I was just crying. And I was like, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can live like this for another 2 years. But I had to leave. I was going to I think I was going to a prayer meeting. I was going to a prayer meeting. And I remember on the drive to the prayer meeting, just praying. I was like, God, finances is the foundation of family. And it wasn't out loud, but it was such a profound thought that it felt like, word for word kind of a statement. And I heard myself say that foundations of finances is the foundation of family. And I just like stopped in my tracks and was like, what did I just say? Did I just say finances is the foundation of family? And it was just like God was right there, like, that's not true. That I am the foundation of family, and I have more than proved myself to you. I have more than proved my faithfulness to you. I've more than proved my character to you. I've more than proved like my powerful hand that watches over you. And I just bawled the whole rest of the way thinking, we don't have finances as a foundation, but we have something way bigger and way more powerful. And that's that's the Bible, right? That He is our rock, that He is our foundation. That was huge. That was really, that was huge. Yeah, we learned a lot about community in that time. We had great friends that would just really like encourage us when we needed encouragement, pray for us when we needed prayer, share meals with us on a whim. And we learned a lot about prayer and intercession in that time too. We did a lot of this. That sounds funny, but we did a lot of praying.
It's not a bad thing.
It's like, I guess it really opened my eyes to the power of prayer. Yeah. Normally when you think about a prayer meeting, it's sort of like dull around this, go around a circle and say prayer requests. But we had music going constantly. Somebody would lead prayer, by reading a passage, and people would just pray silently in their seats. Like it was just them and God time, and those that were there at the prayer meeting were usually just engaging with God and whatever they wanted to pray about in that time. And that really rocked my world as far as what it meant to really engage with God, to pray, to intercede. We saw a lot of amazing, awesome things happen in that time. Yeah, altogether we lived in New Jersey 7 years. And then about 5 years ago, we moved back to upstate New York, where we live now, literally in the same house that I grew up in.
That's amazing. Do you live with your parents, or do you have your old house?
So we live with my parents.
Okay. And is this a long-term kind of thing? Is this a short-term thing? Well, I know it's been 5 years, so that's a dumb question, but I mean that because like I live with my in-laws, but it's not like a temporary thing. Like we intentionally this is
intentional is a good way to live.
Yes.
So that's good. Yeah, when we first moved up here, my husband was pursuing a job in the area. And so we said, hey, can we live with you guys for like 6 weeks while we figure this job thing out? And they're like, yeah, sure. So we did. And I honestly didn't know if it was going to work out or not, but it did work out. And then, okay, well, can we live here a little bit longer then? And we'll just, start looking for a house and we'll buy a house. So things are not, maybe for other people they are, but for us, things are not as easy as they seem. So we're looking for a house, but my husband also was going to school. And yeah, it seemed like a few years went by and we were still here. So I've had 2 babies since the time we've lived here. When I was pregnant with my 5th, we were considering, okay, we're either going to move out or we're going to add on. And that was my whole pregnancy. Move out or add on, move out or add on. Long story short, neither of those options were actually good options. And by the time the baby came, we said, we would like to just stay here and pay rent. We don't know what we're going to do. We don't know where we're going to go. But literally there was a house for sale down the street. And it was sort of like, I know we'd be that close, but life would just not be the same if we didn't live in the same house. Yeah. And it was just sort of sad to think about. And we were kind of like, why? Yeah. And even since then, we sort of had to actively reject the idea of owning your own house, like as a right to adulthood. So we're here and we're renting and we don't really know what our future is, but I would be lying if I didn't say on a bad day I didn't like pull up Trulia and be like, what houses are for sale in the area?
That's why we all have Trulia on our phones for bad days. I think the 3-generation living, I did it as a kid. Like, I remember my grandfather living with us. And now, granted, that was close to the end of his life. So there was, as a kid, I have certain memories of that. But, like, I think of my mom and how much she sacrificed to, like, care for her father-in-law. Because I definitely remember there being, like, adult diapers and hospital bed kind of thing by the end.
Wow.
But for us, like, Andy's parents are fairly young, and because he's the oldest of all of the kids. And so, you know, they're still very active and they have their lives and what they do. But I just think it's such a weird, like, not cultural norm, but such a neat gift to be able to give to your kids to live this, like, for families that it works. Now, not everyone could live with their parents and not be a healthy scenario.
Yeah.
But in our case, it is, like, it works. And yeah, of course, are there hard days? There's hard days if you're alone with your family. Like, that's just like it's part of life. There's going to be hard days when you live with people, but the benefits so far outweigh those hard days. Even in this moment, like, I'm up here recording with you. Downstairs is my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, and my 2 nephews, who are all here because we do family dinner once a week where everybody comes together, even uncle and aunt that don't live here. And my kids get to have that. Like, I just think that's such a sweet thing.
It's very sweet. I mean, like I said, I wouldn't change it. So it's just sort of a different set of challenges. I think it probably depends on people's layout of the house, but we spend most of the time, like, in the kitchen or the family room. So it sort of stinks, like, if somebody's having a blow up, which could even be me. It usually happens in the main living, the kitchen or the family room. And there's, like, no escaping that, really. It's sort of like, yep, okay.
And you're like, real life, right? Here we are.
Here we are.
I think early on, I used to hold more in because of that fear of, like, we live with people. But then you kind of get to the point where you're like, okay, if this is going to work, then it has to be real life.
Then it's got to be real. Yeah.
All right. So you're living with your parents.
Yep.
5 kids.
5 kids.
And I think we talked about this off mic, so I'm going to mention it now. But we were just talking about how we have kids in different schools and from a teenager down to an infant. So, Erica, what does your race look like right now, just day to day?
Yeah, that is a good question. I mean, on an average day, my oldest daughter leaves the house first. So that's my husband, Jesse, takes her to school. I try to get myself out of bed before she leaves so that I can at least say goodbye to her. It's like the day happens so quickly. Like,
yes.
It's like at some point the baby wakes up. That could be, before I'm actually awake or after. But eventually everybody gets up. I get my second oldest out the door to school. She thankfully gets to take a bus, so that helps with that. And then I have a second grader that's homeschooled. But we just finished. So presently we're in summer, even though it's not actually that warm outside right now. But so typically I'm homeschooling all morning till about lunch. And homeschooling is not like some glorious this, then this, then this, then this, though that's what my paper says. It's this, then interruption, then half of this, and then another interruption. Then, okay, instead of doing the other half, let's do the last quarter and call it a day.
It's real life homeschooling when you have a baby in the house. Yes.
And if it's a really hard day, it's throw everything out the window and let's make cookies.
Hey, if they end up in culinary school, then props to you, Mama.
Dude, that would be great, because I'm not that big of a fan of cooking. But yeah, so homeschooling till around noon. I love naps. I love refreshing with a nap. I feel like if I can somehow close my eyes for some amount of time, then I can like restart. But no, the afternoon I try as much as possible to be low key. Like if I'm not literally closing my eyes, my body is moving as little as possible, which again isn't always realistic. But it's like I have to rest in order to get ready for the second shift, like the next wave. Yes. Where they start coming home from school, I start cooking dinner, and both my parents come home. It's cleaning up for the morning and preparing for the evening and cooking for 9 people. And the kids are getting bigger. I literally told Jesse last night, normally we have this kielbasa meal and we do 2 packages of kielbasa. And I was like, okay, we're never doing this again without getting 3 packages of kielbasa because there's never leftovers. And if I'm going to go through all this effort, I need some leftovers. So yeah, and then it's, kids in bed and Jesse time. I love my Jesse time. So Jesse is great, and I really look forward to time spent with him. We try to do morning devotion kind of things or pray with the kids in the evening. And I'll say we're a really fluid family with that, with what that looks like. We don't have like a strict schedule. I have lots of goals and like a few different time chunks where that could happen throughout the day. So throughout a week, it may happen at breakfast. It may happen before bed. It may happen before dinner. So that's something we highly value as a family. However, it's not a set in stone time by any means.
I love the personal grace in both that and even what you were talking about afternoon rest is realizing like you can't just go 100 miles all day. Like there needs to be a time where you slow down, whatever that looks like. And I even love how you're like, I'd love to close my eyes. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But like the goal is slow down and get ready for the next push. And the same with like praying with your kids in devotional. Like here are the times it could happen. The ultimate goal is to do it. It's not always going to happen the same time every day, and that's okay. All right. So what does it look like then for you, Mama, to just not just Jesse time, not Jesse time, but Jesus time in the midst of schedules and homeschooling and all the things? What does just you and Jesus time look like?
I love tea or a latte and any place to sit with my Bible and my journal. I hope that doesn't sound too cliche, but that's my flow. I love to get my thoughts out on paper. Writing in my journal keeps my mind focused. If I come across a verse I like to put it on paper. And I like to read it and reread it and reflect on it and maybe draw little doodles around it or whatever. So time connecting with Jesus ideally is something nice to drink and some quiet space to sit and read and write. However, again, going with the theme of grace, it also looks like me talking with him doing the dishes. I remember one of the most awesome things that he ever showed me was I was pregnant with my second oldest, and we were at a worship event, and I was feeling kind of nauseous, and I sat down. In my head, as I'm listening to the worship playing, in my head, I was imagining myself dancing, kind of like ballerina style dancing. I know I said gymnastics, that I grew up doing gymnastics, and I totally loved it, but I often felt like I was made to be a ballerina. The listeners can't see me, but I'm tall. And I
like a ballerina.
Yes, often people assume I did ballet or something. Ballet or that style has really been kind of like my ideal as far as like as an outlet, I guess. So I'm sitting and I'm worshiping, but in my head, I'm imagining myself worshiping God through this, kind of fluid ballet dance and just like dancing around and me worshiping him. So the Lord changed it from me dancing to me worshiping him in my apartment, and then me worshiping him, while I was cleaning, and then me worshiping him while I was doing dishes. He showed me through that, and it took me a while to realize this, but he showed me through that first picture was me being like, God, this is how I wish I could worship you. But like instead, like I don't know how to dance like that, and I'm nauseous and pregnant. Yeah. But this is how I wish I could worship you, through dance. And then he took it all the way to, but this is how I want you to worship me. I want you to worship me like just in your day in, day out, changing diapers, cleaning the house. And that's real. And the picture of that is real, is that we don't always get a cup of tea and a quiet space, but he's still there. So there's a lot of times that I have had great conversations with him doing the dishes, or just doing, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'm like, Jesus, I need you. Jesus, I need you. And sometimes that is the deepest prayer I can pray, and that's as far as it gets, is Jesus, I need you. And that, you know, just regularly throughout the day.
I love it. Well, I don't want to swing the pendulum completely, but before we wrap up, I have one more question I kind of want to know about you. And I think you know what's coming, but Erica, what I really want to know is, what is the most superficial thing about you?
Woo! I have to say, because I knew this was coming, I have to say probably the most superficial thing about me is my hair. So I have dreadlocks, and I realize people either get it or they don't. And
I'm a big fan, but I could see how dreads are one of the, it's like tattoos, right?
Yeah.
And piercings. Like, some people are like, I love it. And other people are like, well, that's one way to live your life.
Yep, yeah. And you know, like I had them once when I was in high school, and I just have always liked them. And I thought, you know, I'm not getting any older. Wait, I'm not getting any younger. I am getting older, actually.
It's a very Benjamin Button moment. I love the hair, just so we're clear. And I think you rock the dreads.
Cool.
So no matter what anybody else says, just keep them for me, okay?
Will do.
I'll live vicariously through your dreads. Well, Erica, This has been just honestly a pleasure, and so nice to hear your story and your heart, and I'm excited to share it with our listeners. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, girls, now you got to meet my girl, Erica. And I hope it was as much of an encouragement to you as it was for me to hear her story. A couple of things that stood out to me that I just think are worth mentioning. The first one, when she talked about having her daughter finding out she's pregnant her senior year of high school. And she described that experience of, you know, when all of my friends are getting ready to go off to college and I'm here taking care of a baby. And I mentioned it in the interview, but it's so true how much of a flashback that was for me when I first had my son, and my friends were also headed off to college. And just that kind of place that I feel like God brings us to, more than just in this scenario, but throughout our lives, where maybe life just isn't where we thought it would be. And especially in the world of social media, it's so easy to look on Instagram or Facebook and see all these pictures of everyone else doing whatever it is. Meanwhile, we are, you know, wherever it is that God has us. And it can be easy to get discouraged in that, or to wrestle with envy or jealousy or whatever it is. And I don't know, I was reminded as Erica was sharing, just even now in my life, I think when I had my son, it was evident that, you know what, this is where I am. Like, I'm a mom and I need to take care of him. And Erica even said that, like, I'm responsible for another life. But I was definitely convicted about my life now and not getting pulled into that place of being discouraged, or I don't know, jealousy, as much as just getting beat down by seeing where other people are, whether it's they're the same age as me, or whatever it is, we have similarities, the age of our kids, and maybe they seem like they just have it so much more together, or they're so much further in life. And I just feel like a failure. And I do wrestle with that sometimes. And I don't know, something about that part of the story was such a great reminder to me that God's at work where I am. And we talk about that all the time on Hey Girl. And yet sometimes I just need that reminder again that I need to be running my race in my place and not worry about where everybody else is in their race, and be faithful to that. And so I loved what she shared in that. And then just in line with that, she talked about having, her daughter's 13 and all of the well-meaning advice of enjoy them while they're young, because when they become teenagers. And I just think, again, this idea of embracing where we're at it was a good reminder. And I think it's a good word for all of us. And this doesn't, whether you have teenagers, whether you have toddlers, I feel like there's a lot of different milestones in our kids' lives that can be really easy for us to dread, because people, and again, well-meaning, but are like, oh my goodness, whether it's the terrible 2s or 3s or 4s or whatever, oh gosh, your kid's starting school, like that's terrifying, or you're about to have teenagers, all of these things. And rather than looking at them through fear and like, oh, it's almost like dread of the next season in our kid's life, is just embracing it and loving the good and being faithful to walk through the hard parts, because just as we mentioned in this interview, there's good and bad in every season. And I feel like we have a choice. Well, I don't feel like we do have a choice as to what we focus on in each season. So maybe you're listening and you have teenagers and you just need a mind shift, just to take on a different focus or perspective and to really start looking for the joy and blessings of having teenagers. Maybe it's toddlers. Maybe you're a young mom and your kids are at that age that it is busy, go, go, go. And it can be really easy to be discouraged and dragged down by that and be longing for something different. But instead today, to just choose, you know what? I'm going to embrace and love and be intentional about looking for the things that are positive and that are a blessing in this season. Because the one thing I'm realizing the older my kids get is some of the things that were so precious when they're little, that those things are kind of behind me now. Like I got to celebrate and embrace them then, but now we're on to a new season. And I need to take that reminder moving ahead that I don't want to miss the opportunity to celebrate my kids at the stage they're at now. And I'll be honest, with 12-year-old girl, 14-year-old boy, there are some days when it would be way easier to just complain about what's hard. And it takes a lot of intentionality to find the things that are awesome. But at least for me, after this conversation and just thinking, even now, I want to do it. I want to be intentional. I want to celebrate the things that are beautiful in this season of life. And I pray that over you as well. So I hope that this was just another incredibly inspiring and encouraging story for you, but not just over Erica's life, but over your life, wherever God has you. And so as we look into this next week, I just pray over each one of us that we'll really embrace the place that God has us and run this race. And for me today, in case you can't already tell, it's embracing this crazy cold that I caught in the middle of the summer. What in the world? But wherever God has you, I hope that you're encouraged today. And again, if at any point you want to reach out, whether it's through Instagram, Facebook, at Hey Girl Pod, or you can find my personal account is at Bethany Needham. And we love to hear the stories of how God speaks to you through this podcast. We're getting ready to wrap up season 2, which is absolutely crazy. We've got a couple more episodes coming your way. But then we're going to start recording for season 3. So the other thing we'd love is suggestions from you. Who should we be interviewing for season 3? We only know so many people. So we love getting those messages from you, people you know that you want to hear their story here. So like we remind you every single week, we just want to encourage you to run your race in your place and keep being awesome for Jesus. Bye, girls.